What's going on, gang? I hope you're well. On today's episode, what I'm going to be tackling is actually strength training when tackling an ultra endurance event. Me and Mr. Bradley Foster have got an ultra endurance run in 4 months' time, just over, end of September. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a bit of a rundown in relation to what I'm training today, how I'm going to be attacking it, and then from a strength perspective, how it's going to carry over to your endurance. Layman's terms, when it comes down to ultra endurance events or any form of endurance event, the main thing that what I see and problems that I see a lot of the time are many just focusing on the endurance piece, whether it's, in my context now, it's just running, but Ironmen as well, or people in triathlons, it's just doing the event itself, whether it's running, swimming, bike, or whatever. The issue is if you're not strong, the reason why you get injured is because you lose form. So strength training is imperative. There's a big context at the moment around hybrid training. Concurrent training basically means you've got two polar opposite goals. One's being, well, usually a strength bias, whether it's powerlifting or getting maximally strong. And obviously the bottom end of the spectrum is most endured. So whether what we're doing is an ultra, and I've sort of run that protocol too. So what I do is I still keep a strength, I still aim to stay as strong as possible throughout the whole prep, even when my volume's massive. And something that many people get wrong in this is they think that just doing rehab-based exercises is gonna give them the strength gains they're asking for. That's one of the problems with social media, is that people are trying to find new ways of getting strong. Getting strong means lifting heavy weights. Lifting heavy weights safely and boxing clever with exercise selection, that's going to be the game changer for you when leading into a race, building into your prep, or just keeping you safe and strong when you're going through your phase of training. That's the ambition. So today I've got a lower body session, and something that I do is I actually work on single leg and core generally first. Reason being is whenever you're doing anything that's unilateral, so unilateral means single leg or single arm, when you're running especially, the premise is you need to be as strong as you possibly can on that one leg. For me, in most of my programming for anybody in endurance events, they run through a single leg lift first. It's because I know they've got the most amount of gas, so they're usually going to be the most stable at that point. And also, if we are priming into, I'm going into, basically today's session for me is going to be a stagger stance hex bar deadlift. I'm then going into a descending rep series on a front squat, and I'll explain to you why I'm using a front squat rather than a back squat, and then just some accessory work. I use my single leg lift first because I want to get the most out of that lift possible in that single leg bias movement. Most people, again, what they'll do is they'll think they have to train like a power lifter whenever they do strength training. There is a reason, there is a time and a place for that, but most people that I deal with, they haven't got a good base of strength anyway, let alone if you smash them on a double leg movement like a squat, and then you try and give them some, I don't know, whatever, walking lunges or barbell split squat or staggered hex bar deadlifts like me, they're absolutely cooked. They can't stay stable, and that's where they can't actually load properly. So at the beginning of the session, that's where you've got the most amount of gas. So focusing on strength and stability at the same time means you're gonna get the most out of that part of your session. Common misconception when it comes down to warm-ups, and you may have been told a million times that you should be just using a glute band to activate your glutes. That is true in a small context. Obviously, when you're turning your knee out, it's called external rotation, you're activating glutes. For me, though, what I like my customers and my athletes to do is actually activate their glutes, or utilize their glute activation through movement. Lunges, single leg RDLs, Bulgarian split squats, lateral lunges, basically movement patterns that elicit glute activation, in my opinion, are better than just priming it with a glute band. You can use a glute band and do primers in relation to movement, but just a little note, if you are that guy or girl who's just using a band and then getting straight into your session, you're not biomechanically loading that muscle properly. And what we want to do is be able to be load properly, get as stable as we can, because by then default you can generate as most amount of force, and that's going to give you the adaptation you're asking for. So, what I said to you a minute ago about using this for glutes, for me, a key thing you need to do when you warm up is actually load your core properly. Now, many runners think they get bad lower back. What the issue they have is they've actually got weak hip flexor. This is a great tool to light your hip flexors up, especially when you're squatting, is you don't want to be in that extended position. So, what I do is I do my general movement prep, and then I work on, it's called a psoas march, what I'm doing is turning my hips underneath so you see a straight line between my shoulder, hip, knee and foot. I'm on my toes, I'm not on my heels. And I'm breathing in, I'm sucking my belly button in. What that's doing is activating, it's called your trans abs. So I breathe in, suck those abs in, and I bring that to the top. Now that tension on my hip flexor now is lighting up my hip flexor, or your psoas muscle, which is giving me, which means I know that if you look at it from the side, it looks like I'm running in relation to profile. Which most people, when they run, if they've got weak abs, they don't actually, they load their hips like they're emptying a bucket of water. We want to be in that neutral position. So this band for me, useless for glutes, but really effective to train your abs to make sure you're in the right position. So before you do any lifting, obviously I said before, we're going to be doing single leg work to start with. Priming your central nervous system is integral. Why? Because you want to be in a heightened state, ready for you to actually lift heavy. Remember, everything about training is about intent. Lifting as hard and as fast as possible, being as stable as possible, and also, within some contexts, being as violent. For me, jump, throw, I'm using a kettlebell swing because I want to load my posterior chain, so my hamstring, my ass, and my lower back. I'm using 224s because I want something heavy. I've got a 60 kilo sandbag that I'd usually do, but I blew a hole in it the other day. So what I'm going to do for my priming exercises, I'm going to do a set of 10 double kettlebell swing. Those who know a kettlebell swing, please don't squat around like a weapon. A kettlebell swing comes from your hip and it's a snap. It's that triple extension movement. Set of 10 of those. And that last one, I'm going to swing them into a front rack position. That front rack's going to load my abs and I'm going to walk literally like 20 meters there, 20 meters back. Little context on that front rack position, those on being a geek. If you're walking around with your elbows up, you're not loading your abs, you're loading your shoulders. Elbows down, elbow above your hip bone, knuckles to your chin, elbows down, and you want to be walking, sounds weird, walking like a bit like a duck, ass and knee, you're not going to be able to go there because you'll fall over. We want that core nice and strong. Okay, so from a swing perspective, keep your elbows back. There, swing. And then, elbows down. You'll see that it's on that part of my hand too. So my fist and my elbow are down. And walking, elbows down, all the way out. Most people that I see, they do this. This is loading your delts. And I know sometimes it's a case of getting the work in. Everything you do in the gym should mean something. And because, layman's terms, just don't waste fucking time. Walking around, doing a set of 40s each side, like this because you've got big shoulders, the reason why you're doing it is to load your abs. If you can only load 24s, load 24s or 16s. Or, as you progress, 28, 32, 40. But think of it that way, do it for a reason. Little tip, when you're dismounting, shrug your shoulders and put your elbows back. Elbows back. Don't try and throw them out. Elbows back, and then swing backwards. Just a caveat onto those who were saying about loading single leg first. If you are intermediate or advanced athlete of some description, i.e. you've ran multiple training phases or you've followed a program for a long period of time, I usually say 2 years as an intermediate athlete, you're going to have the ability to generate force at the beginning of the session, and in the middle of the session, you're still going to be able to hit good numbers. If you're fresh to the game, especially endurance athletes who don't do any gym, you'll find that your single leg stuff will absolutely tax the hell out of you because you've got to do so much stability work and it takes a lot out of your central nervous system. One of my old friends, Jonas, shout out to him, and if you ever want us to get quick, Jonas Tudu, his name is, go and speak to him. Guy's amazing. When I snapped my knee in half, I texted him about what to do. And I sent him my numbers on my squat, bench, deadlift, and he texted me back saying, mate, what's your single leg work? And he gave me, reeled off a fair few different exercises, like single leg RDL and stuff, because the carryover to running was so important. So for me, if you're a trained individual and you're thinking about, right, cool, training phases, loading this is really, really effective because of the carryover into the actual sport, which is hours on the mountain. Now for me, I've chosen a staggered stance hex bar deadlift. Reason why: it allows me to generate a lot of force because of the position of my hip. Also, if you go just single leg, it's massively stability driven. Those who followed me for a long period of time, I've been doing that for multiple phases. Barbell single leg RDLs or landmine RDLs, single leg RDLs. I've loaded them to near max capacity. Now I'm working off relative force. So rate of force development on that single leg work. Next one I'm going to do is a full glute ham raise. Now, or it's more like a Nordic because I can't go into full flexion. You'll see that I have to help with my hands off the floor. I've only got one hamstring that works properly. I haven't got nerve control because I snapped my knee in half. So what you'll see is that what I'm trying to do is keep my heels in as close as possible and pull my toes down. So I'm dorsiflexing, I'm bringing my toes up. And I'm trying to take as long as I possibly can to this position here, all the way down, and be as aggressive as a way back up. Now, what you'll see at the bottom is I'll bring my chin down. What I see a lot of the time are people stick their heads up and they load their lower back. You see my back does this. Whereas on the way back up, have that chin down, your chin's connected to your ass bone. It brings your tailbone underneath. So if I extend all the way out down there, chin down, I'm trying to keep as much integrity as possible between my shoulder, hip and knee, and really emphasizing on pulling back and driving. Now again, I'm using this as a primer, and also when you look for hamstring injuries, most people load hamstrings high volume. A hamstring is a fast twitch muscle fiber predominantly. It prefers to have lower reps, higher weight to get more adaptation to be stronger compared to slower fibers like in your quad. A common argument in the fitness space, which I don't even understand why it's an argument, is should you use lifting straps when lifting? For me, whenever you're using for athletic performance, the end outcome is the most important thing. For me, loading is the most important. If my grip strength is the reason why I'm failing, I'm not getting the adaptation that I want. Now, if you're a power lifter or you compete in lifting or you're a heavy CrossFitter, you should definitely train without, because that's going to be a limiting factor during competition. For me right now, I'm trying to lift as heavy as I can, as aggressively as I can. So using straps is massively important. Also, caveat, for back exercises, especially on any machine, these are integral purely because your grip's the first thing going to go, not your back. So it's not an argument, it's a horses for courses and a reason for doing it thing, not a should you shouldn't thing. Second caveat, talking about using lifting belts. I'm a massive fan of a lifting belt for strength exercises, deadlifts, squats, etc. The reason why I'm not now is because I want my core to be working even harder, just so in the next lift it's strong, and that's going to carry over. A belt is called circumferential pressure. It doesn't protect your back. It increases the amount of pressure inside your abs. I'm loading heavy. For me, I can pull 260, 270, 280 on a hex bar, 280. We'll try it out 280 one day. But I'm lifting at 190. I'm confident and comfortable that I could do this. So I'm not going to use a belt. I'm going to use straps. I'm not going to use a belt. But if I was to go any heavier and I was using it as a bilateral movement, so 2 feet together, I would then load up. So again, if you are going to use a belt, you want to be going, an easy number to think about is if you're going over double body weight in anything, usually a belt can be helpful purely from a mechanical standpoint, not a safety one. So again, another argument, I don't know why it's an argument, is should you wear heel lifts when you're lifting? When you're doing anything hinge or anything on the floor, in my opinion, wear something as minimalist as possible, i.e. Viva Barefoot. These are my favorite. They're called a Motus. I love these. Now, the reason why you use a heel lift is it brings your heel up and it puts you more in that better profile. It's going to allow me to stay more upright whilst I front squat. Most people they push their ass back because they haven't got the mobility, the dorsiflexion or the dorsiflexion means bringing your toe to your shin, plantar flexion down. They haven't got the dorsiflexion to get their knee over their toe. By adding a shoe, like I use a Nike Mellow 3, love these shoes. It automatically brings my profile higher. I only squat in these. I do everything else that I do will be in these purely for the basis of foot mechanics, and that I'll only want to load in ranges that I can get into. This allows me to be safer, and a front squat is integral that the weight stays in a more upright position. Absolute game changer. 99% of clients of mine will have a heel lift. If you don't have a shoe, just get a 2.5 kg plate, or you can use something bigger like a 10, but it's a bit much, and stand on that. It will make your squat a whole lot safer and more effective. So, done my single leg movement. I'm now heading into a front squat. Again, people will want to know percentages and what you're doing, and I'm an S&C coach, so I love percentages. I run a lot of my clients run on linear strength blocks or power phases where they are working on percentages. I'm now a new parent, and this is massively regulated on how recovered I am. Today I'm going 5 times 3 at 85%, around that neck of the woods. But sleep, nutrition, energy, work, all these things matter. So a better way of auto-regulating that for most of my customers and people that I work with from an athletic standpoint is actually doing it on feel. If you've got 5 times 3, you're trying to find a 3 rep max within reason. Whereas if you're being an athlete and you're hyper-specific, 5 times 3, 85%. If you've got it in the locker, get after it. If you need to build up to it, which to be honest, me today, I'm going to build up to it just purely because of everything that happened yesterday. The little man was good, but we were busy at work. And trying to get the most out of your session that way. Again, just to be clear, end in mind, 110K in September, not what's my 1RM front squat. Don't get me wrong, I'm still going to chase it. I'm still going to chase 1 rep maxes and strength. But right now, click the ticket and move is more important. Those of you who want a front squat, 2 things. Front squat means you want to try and keep your hand engaged, and when my arm goes through, I'm pushing both my elbows in. So I'm going to be in and in. You'll see that some people can't actually have their hands on the bar. They'll do this. Use 2 fingers. Keep your elbows in and use 2 fingers, or bodybuilder style. The reason why you're going to front squat is purely you want to load more quad, and that's actually, and load your core more. A back squat loads your back and ass more. So I'm going to do 3 working sets. I'm going to go 140, 145, 145. I've chosen a front squat for myself purely because I'm actually quite effective at a back squat because I've got a strong lower back. The premise of a front squat for me, from a longevity standpoint, it doesn't load my spine. It loads my core. When I'm running, I want to make sure I'm in that strong braced position naturally. You're not running around like you want to squeeze your shit out. But a front squat it loads me enough to stimulate maximal strength, but not to a perspective of an example. When I back squat, I can back squat all the way down and I can push my bum back and then leverage my back. So I go into a bit of if I'm going for whatever, 220 for a single or whatever. So for me, a front squat's not is more athletic just for this. Now, if you're doing powerlifting, obviously you're going to go back squat, or if you're running a hybrid method that we talked about, powerlifting and endurance, yeah, cool, you can go back squat. Doesn't mean I don't back squat. It just means for my strength at the moment, I've chosen a front squat. I've done my first set, and I got to 140. I'm not gonna lie, I felt like my world was ending a little bit, so I'm gonna stay at that rather than 145. Again, ego says 145. I'll definitely have it in the locker. I just don't want to bail on YouTube. I'll see how I feel after this set. We may go up. We've got 2 more sets of this. Again, mentioning I built up for this purely because I want to increase, it's called circumferential pressure, increase the pressure when I'm at the bottom, just to keep myself upright really. But again, we'll just see how we go. Fucking he lost that. Woo! That nearly went flying forward. Right, gang, so that's me calling that for a day. Basically did 9 working sets. The reason why I haven't done a C series tomorrow morning, because of my travel, I've got a deadlift heavy tomorrow as well, just the way that the week's gone, and I've also got a 90-minute run to do Saturday morning. So one thing I see a lot of the time with people, especially in my space or any gym space really, is putting in fluff volume of just aimless shit, excuse my French, by adding in stuff at the end of a session that's actually not very adaptive, especially when you're going in for ultra endurance or you're going in for high levels of endurance events, because you can do a 12-minute AMRAP at the end of just some junk volume of some terribly looking lunges with a sandbag on your back because it's high rocks. So that's the issue with most people's programming. For me, 45 minutes, hour, 2 big supersets or 2 heavy lifts is enough. Do I do a C series? Yeah, sure. But today, just for the sake of this time of my training and because, as I said, my travel and where I've been, I'm going to keep it there, get in, refuel, and then get into this afternoon's work. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions in relation to basically balancing your strength training and any forms of training, but particularly to this video, ultra endurance, that's going to be the sort of vibe heading in for the next sort of 4 months. More than happy to answer. Comment, like, share, say hello. The more interaction, the better. I think having a community of people that actually want to perform better rather than a community of people that want to look like they perform, that's the whole point of this channel. So anyway, thank you very much and I'll catch you soon.